Trade Genius.
What's going on, guys? Philip at Trade Genius. All right, in this video, we're going to talk about a post that was made by the Bank of China that was pro Bitcoin for the most part. And it was basically an explanation of what Bitcoin is and how it works. And so I'm just going to scroll through it and show you guys what they posted. I think it's kind of notable because at the moment, it's kind of in a gray area where it's recognized as property. And so you can hold it, but as far as exchanges and things like ICOs and things like that, that's all still a no-no. But I think what we might be seeing is a little bit of a change as far as that regulatory stance goes. And then I think at some point, probably we're going to see regulations allowing exchanges and ultimately ICOs. So some of these Chinese plays like Neo and things like that, accumulating some of these levels will play big into events like that in the future when regulations open up in China that are crypto friendly. So the Bank of China is not the central bank of China, PBOC. This is an independent bank, a little more liberal in regards to their views. So anyway, let's take a look at this article that they posted on their site. So it just mentions Bitcoin soaring. Let's take a look. You can't translate the infographic, so I'm going to kind of go through based on what I researched just to kind of explain to you what they talk about. So they talked about Bitcoin, heading to 20,000, and so what's this all about? And so they get into it. They got Justin Sun, of course, he's the founder of Tron. He says the problem in the world, there's too much money floating around. This guy, they counter that by saying he lost 2,000 Bitcoin. He committed suicide. So I think you're just kind of trying to put some perspective on the volatility of this thing. But then they get into basically the history of the Bitcoin as far as the white paper goes. Gets into how it's a point-to-point digital currency. You got to mine it. There's miners that produce Bitcoin through blockchain rewards or the block mining reward process. And then the halving events that happen. So the rewards go from 25 to 12 where they currently are. And then in a few months, we're going to go to 6.5. So they kind of explain that. They talk about back in 2009 when the first Genesis block was mined, and then how in 2010 the first transaction that was notably for those pizzas, 10,000 Bitcoins for a pizza, and then how it appreciated in value in 2013, 2014, Mt. Gox hack, and then 2017 where it got more mainstream and then hit the all-time highs of 20,000 US and then dropped down 80%, right? Typical retail boom bust cycle. And now, with crypto being more mainstream, now Facebook's getting into their cryptocurrency. So they've kind of framed how cryptocurrencies have grown into more of a mainstream thing. Then they get into part two. It kind of deals with Bitcoin's volatility, as we kind of mentioned before, graphs it out. Then it talks about as far as its scarcity and the hash rate and how that works. And then what I liked here was toward the end of this section, they talk about how the Zimbabwe dollar, how inflation has just killed that, right? And it takes millions of Zimbabwe dollars to buy a loaf of bread or eggs, and how the Zimbabweans are actually using Bitcoin as a safe haven to shield themselves from hyperinflation. And I've always said, Bitcoin is the greatest hedge ever invented for inflation. And that's playing out. And so they're explaining that, which I thought was pretty interesting. They brought that up in this infographic. And then part three looks kind of like at present day. Now things are getting more mainstream. We have Bitcoin ATM machines, payment networks are coming around, and it's becoming a low fee cross-border payment solution as well as store value. It also goes on talks about some of the legacy investor type personalities, Ray Dalio, Jamie Dimon, Warren Buffett. All of these guys have negative Bitcoin sentiment, so it brought that out. Interestingly, though, then they counter that again with a picture of this guy who is representative of a gentleman named Li Xiaolai, who is known as China's biggest Bitcoin holder. And he's basically burning fiat and again, saying that Bitcoin is a hedge against inflation. So interesting article, more, all in all, positive outlook on Bitcoin regarding how its role in the current money printing world that we live in. And so I thought that was interesting that a Chinese bank would go ahead with this kind of infographic and put Bitcoin in this kind of light. So I think ultimately we see China a few years ago was, Bitcoin's banned, Bitcoin's not banned, cryptocurrencies banned, not banned. So they're going to go back and forth. I think we're going to see another swing of the pendulum back to pro crypto over the next 12 to 24 months is my guess. And I think that's going to probably bode really well, I think, for some alt plays ultimately, but also for the price of Bitcoin. And so anyway, thought I'd share that with you guys and let you know kind of how things are developing internationally, especially with China with regards to Bitcoin. That's it for this video, guys. Next one, we'll do a big update on Bitcoin as it's dropped further down in price below 10,000. Until then, thanks for watching. Please hit like and subscribe, and I'll see you later.
Trade Genius.